Time now to get an update on the business news, and we're going to start with a mega bank possibly in the works in Germany. Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank have officially acknowledged they're in merger talks. Yuka Royer is here to tell us more about that. Yuka.
Well, Eve, Germany's two biggest banks have confirmed that they are indeed in talks for a possible merger, putting an end to months of speculation. Both banks will turn 150 next year and were set up to help German companies trading around the world. But both have been struggling since the 2008 financial crisis. Cole Stangler reports.
Germany's two biggest banks, Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank, have kicked off merger talks, though they plan to take their time on negotiations.
It is important to us that we will only engage in a transaction if it makes economic sense, and therefore it needs a plan, especially a good integration plan. Together with Commerzbank, we will now evaluate this. We will have a due diligence, and only when the results are there, we will take a decision.
If the two banks merged, it would create the eurozone's second largest lender, with some 1.8 trillion euros in joint assets, 34 billion euros of revenue, more than 140,000 employees, and 2,600 branches. The German government has signaled support for the merger, hoping to shore up the country's somewhat fragile financial sector. Deutsche Bank emerged unscathed from the 2008 crisis, but has struggled since. In 2016, the International Monetary Fund called it the world's biggest risk to financial stability among peers. Commerzbank has also struggled since the crisis, with the state owning a 15% stake after providing a bailout in 2009. But a deal is far from certain. Labor unions oppose a merger for fear of job losses that can number in the tens of thousands. And Deutsche Bank's top shareholders worry it could derail the bank's internal restructuring. The two banks are expected to decide whether a fusion is possible in the coming weeks.
While shares of these two German banks both rose at the open in Frankfurt, with Deutsche Bank up 4.5%, 3.25% rather, and Commerzbank up 4.5 percentage points. Major European stock indices were mixed at the open, with London's FTSE up about 1/3 of a percentage point. Paris's Frankfurt both near the flat line. Investors turning their focus on the US Federal Reserve's meeting scheduled for later this week. Asian stocks earlier rose this Monday, with investors still keeping a close eye on developments in the US-China trade talks. As you can see there, Shanghai Composite up almost 2.5%. Staying in Europe, British companies are likely to cut investment by the most since the financial crisis because of Brexit, even if Prime Minister Theresa May gets a deal. A new forecast released by the British Chambers of Commerce shows business investment is set to fall by an annual 1% this year. Many firms have already set up or moved operations to other EU countries ahead of the divorce. BCC's Director General says it is clear that political inaction has already had economic consequences, with many firms hitting the brakes on investment and recruitment decisions as a result of ongoing uncertainty. Some of this investment may never come back to the UK. Boeing is finalising the development of a software upgrade and revision of pilot training for its 737 MAX, following two fatal crashes involving the model in 5 months. The plane maker says updates are intended to address how the aircraft's flight control system responds to erroneous sensor inputs. Authorities have pointed to similarities between last October's Lion Air crash and this month's Ethiopian Airlines disaster. Nissan is keeping the post of chairman vacant for now, with a view to scrapping it altogether. Japan's Asahi Shimbun says that the decision is part of the firm's efforts to avoid a concentration of power and bolster corporate governance. The carmaker is set to announce a new guidance next week. Meanwhile, in an interview with the French daily Le Figaro, Renault's president Jean-Dominique Senard admitted that the French government had asked the company to pursue a possible merger with Nissan, but said it wasn't on the table now. He stressed that the priority was to make the alliance more efficient. And finally, US President Donald Trump has criticised General Motors again over its closure of a plant in Ohio. The factory ended production earlier this month as the carmaker adjusts to slowing demand. In a tweet, Trump said that he was not happy the plant closed when everything else in the country was booming, and that he had asked CEO Mary Barra to do something quickly. And that's it for business for now.
OK, Yuka, thanks a lot for that. Yuka Royer there with our business update.